She was just a maid. Until the vampire CEO claimed her as his daughter. Part 2. Chapter 8. The Kidnapping Attempt. Romina wasn't allowed to breathe after that night. The moment Damiano realized she had kissed Adrian De Luca, the son of his most dangerous enemy, everything changed. Guards doubled. Windows sealed. Her phone was taken. Replaced with a Fortunato-issued device that could only call two numbers, Damiano and the estate's command center. She wasn't grounded. She was imprisoned. She paced the halls like a caged animal. The opulence that once felt surreal now felt suffocating. Every room had eyes. Every corner whispered, "You belong to him." Romina barely saw Damiano in the days that followed. When she did, he was all stone and silence. The softness from earlier, the protectiveness, the careful control, had hardened into something cold and dangerous. "I told you they'd come for you," he said once, passing her in the hall. She stopped walking. "That's what this is about. You're mad because I kissed someone?" Damiano turned his head slowly. "I'm furious," he said, voice ice. "Because you kissed the only person in the world who could use you to destroy me. You think I'm that stupid? No. I think he's that smart." That night, Romina decided she needed air. Real air. Not filtered through security systems and private terraces. She slipped out through the west garden, down the service path that led to the edge of the forest, the only place the surveillance didn't cover. She hadn't gone far when the hairs on the back of her neck stood up. She wasn't alone. They came out of the trees in silence. Two men. Not vampires, or at least, not the polished kind like Damiano or Adrian. These ones were feral. Unkempt. Dressed in black with silver blades strapped to their sides. Romina stepped back immediately. "Stop," one of them growled. "Don't run." She ran. A blur of trees. Her breath sharp in her lungs. A branch cut her cheek as she ducked through the underbrush, heart pounding. They were faster. They didn't breathe like humans. Didn't tire. They cornered her by the base of an old stone wall, one grabbing her arm, the other pulling out something that looked like a thin glass dagger. "She's not supposed to be harmed," one hissed. "Just sedated," she screamed. And then he was there. Adrian. He landed like lightning, fast, brutal, beautiful in his violence. One attacker flew backward into the trees. The other lunged, and Adrian stabbed him in the shoulder with his own blade. "Mine!" he growled. "Touch her again and you die screaming." The attackers scrambled. One vanished. The other limped away. Romina stood frozen, trembling, blood dripping from the scratch on her face. Adrian turned to her, hands still glowing faintly from the heat of his magic. She blinked. How did you? I was watching. You were following me?" "Yes." She should have been furious. Instead, she stepped forward and grabbed his shirt. "You saved me." "Again," he said softly. Their eyes locked. Then she did something stupid. She threw her arms around him. He caught her. Held her. And this time, when she pulled away, she didn't speak. But Adrian did. "Come with me." She froze. "What?" "Come with me. Now. I won't take you back to him. I can't just, he'll find you. I know. But not immediately. And not where I'm taking you." "Why are you doing this?" she whispered. "Because I don't want to hurt you," Adrian said, brushing a curl away from her face. "And I know what they'll do if they get to you before I do." Romina hesitated. This was madness. Running with the son of her father's greatest enemy? It was suicidal. But something in her blood, or her bones, or her fate, whispered, "Go." She nodded once. and Adrian took her hand. Together, they vanished into the night. Back at the estate, Damiano stood in the empty garden, staring at the broken branches, the disturbed dirt, the faint scent in the air. Romina's scent. And underneath it, his. Adrian. Damiano's voice was a growl as he summoned his inner guard. Seal the city. Lock down every portal. Find her. The soldier hesitated. Sir, what if she went willingly? Damiano's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. Then bring him back in pieces. Chapter 9. Held by the enemy. Romina woke in silk. For a moment, she thought she was back at the Fortunato estate, but then her fingers sank into bedding that smelled different. Spice and something darker. Masculine. Expensive. She opened her eyes to soft, indirect lighting and walls of black marble and red velvet. Not a hospital. Not a safe house. Not anything ordinary. A penthouse. Luxurious. Palatial. And completely unfamiliar. She sat up fast. Her clothes had been changed, her torn jeans and hoodie replaced by a silk robe that hung loose over her shoulders. Her throat burned with a sudden panic. Where the hell am I? A voice came from across the room. Somewhere safe. Safer than the mansion, anyway. Adrian De Luca stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, one hand in his pocket, the other holding a glass of something deep crimson. He was barefoot, shirtless, and watching the sunrise like it was a joke only he understood. Romina bolted to her feet, gripping the edge of the bed. You changed my clothes? I had a maid do it, he said without turning. You were unconscious. You had a fever. I didn't do anything creepy, relax. Forgive me if trusting the enemy doesn't come naturally. Now he turned. And she hated how good he looked doing it, like sin wrapped in muscle and charm. I'm not your enemy, he said. Not yet. Romina wandered the space carefully, like the floor might vanish under her feet. The penthouse was breathtaking. Red velvet curtains, black stone columns, dark wood shelves stacked with ancient books and scrolls. On one wall hung a massive oil painting of a man with Adrian's face, older, crueler, with Cassian De Luca's icy blue eyes. Your father? She asked. Adrian nodded. The original De Luca. The one who started the bloodline. And you're just hiding me here? Not hiding, he said, walking toward her slowly. Sheltering. Romina turned to face him. So what's the plan, Prince Adrian? Keep me in this penthouse like a blood-drenched Rapunzel? Feed me tea and trauma until I agree to whatever twisted game your father's playing? He stopped just in front of her. Too close again. I didn't bring you here for him, he said. Then why? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he lifted a hand and brushed his thumb across the fading cut on her cheek. You were bleeding, he said softly. And shaking. And you kissed me. Not because I tricked you, not because of some plan, because you wanted to. Romina's breath caught. I still do, he added lower now. That's why this is dangerous. She stepped back before he could touch her again. So I'm a guest, she said carefully. Not a prisoner? Adrian gave her a tight smile. That depends. On what? On whether you try to leave. Her stomach dropped. He saw it in her face and exhaled. I'm not trying to hurt you, Romina. But if you go now, my father will get to you before Damiano does. And unlike Damiano, Cassian has no limits. I can take care of myself. You couldn't outrun 2 scouts. Adrian snapped, voice sharp now. What makes you think you can outrun an entire house of vampires who want your blood for their rituals? She flinched. Then she clenched her fists. So what, I'm supposed to just sit here and wait until you decide what to do with me? No, he said, voice softening. You're supposed to stay alive. That's the only thing that matters right now. Romina wandered the penthouse in silence later that day. There were no locked doors. No bars. Just heavily guarded elevator access and security spells so thick she could feel them vibrating in her molars. She found a music room. A library. Even a rooftop greenhouse with black roses and silver ivy, enchanted plants used in vampire healing rituals. It was paradise. But it still felt like a cage. Especially when she caught Adrian watching her, always from a distance, always with that same unreadable expression. That night, they shared dinner. Fresh food for her. A crystal decanter for him. She tried not to ask what was in it. So what's your plan? She asked finally. Keep me until what? I age out of being useful? Adrian met her gaze. You're not a weapon, Romina. You're a legacy. You carry 2 lines in your blood, Fortunato and the witch Evelyn Nix. That makes you more important than anyone alive. I don't want to be important, she said, voice tight. Too late. Later, in the quiet of her guest room, Romina stared at herself in the mirror. Her reflection was pale, tired. Her eyes older than they should be. She was not the girl who scrubbed hotel bathrooms anymore. Now she was the daughter of a vampire lord. A bloodline heiress. A prize in a war she didn't ask for. And somewhere far away, her father was probably preparing to burn the world down to find her. She wondered, if he got here first, would Adrian fight him? Would she? And worst of all, she wondered, what if she didn't want to leave? Chapter 10. Falling for the Dark Side. Romina stopped counting the days. Time in the DeLuca penthouse wasn't real. There were no alarms, no chores, no schedules. No guards, visible ones, at least. The windows were enchanted. The doors opened only when Adrian allowed it. The outside world was blocked by layers of protection, power, and privilege. And the more time she spent here, the harder it became to remember the life she'd had before. It scared her. But not enough to leave. Adrian was different here. He wasn't the smirking flirt she met in the record store, or the cocky savior from the rainstorm. He was quieter. Watchful. When he wasn't pacing through long phone calls with his father, he was showing her parts of the penthouse no one else saw. The music room. The library with blood-sealed grimoires. The rooftop greenhouse, where he confessed he sometimes slept, because it's the only place in this house that doesn't smell like old secrets. Romina had laughed at that. But not because it was funny. Because it was true. They ate together. Often. Too often. At first, she sat across from him like a wary animal. But over time, she began to lean closer. Joke. Talk. Ask things she shouldn't. One night, while picking at roasted squash and wine, she asked, "Do you even drink wine?" Adrian grinned. "Only for appearances. It doesn't do anything for me." Romina cocked her head. "So what does?" His grin faded into something darker. Then he stood and crossed the space between them, slowly. Romina held her breath. He stopped inches from her, looking down at her lips. "Don't ask questions you're not ready to hear answers to." Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. But she didn't back away. Another night, they talked in the greenhouse. Romina sat on a black iron bench, barefoot, wrapped in a velvet robe. Adrian stood nearby, plucking petals off a silver ivy blossom. "You're not like him," she said. "My father?" Adrian scoffed. "Thank God. I mean it. You could have taken me straight to him the night you found me." "I still might," he said. "Eventually." She looked away. "But I don't want to," he added. "Why not?" He was quiet. Then, "Because with you, I don't have to pretend to be someone I'm not." Romina turned to him. Adrian's voice was low, raw. All my life, I've been the weapon Cashin wanted. The heir. The killer. But with you, I feel like, maybe I could be something else. Romina swallowed. Maybe I feel the same. The next day, Romina woke up to find Adrian gone. A note on her pillow read, "Back by sunset. Don't touch anything with teeth." Eh? She rolled her eyes but smiled. She wandered the penthouse like she always did, this time feeling the absence of his presence more than she expected. In the lounge, she found a piano, sleek, black, ancient. Dustless. She sat. Her fingers hovered over the keys, then played a few notes. A soft melody. Then louder. Deeper. She didn't hear the door open. Didn't feel the temperature drop. Until the voice came from behind her. "You play beautifully." Romina froze. She turned slowly. A man stood there. Silver hair slicked back. Crisp black suit. Eyes like ice. Cashin de Luca. Romina stood, instantly alert. "You shouldn't be here." He smiled politely. "It's my home." She said nothing. Cashin stepped closer, like he was approaching a pet he wasn't sure would bite. "I'm glad to finally meet you, Romina. Can't say the feeling's mutual." He chuckled. "I can see why Adrian likes you." She narrowed her eyes. "If you hurt him." "Oh, I don't plan to hurt him." Cashin's smile faded. "But I do plan to remind him who he belongs to." Romina's fists clenched. "He's not a thing you own." Cashin's voice dropped, sharp and deadly. "And neither are you." Later that night, Adrian returned. Romina waited by the door. When he stepped inside, she didn't speak. She just walked straight to him and slammed her fists against his chest. "Your father came here." Adrian froze. "What?" "He came into the penthouse. He talked to me. Threatened me." Adrian's jaw tightened. "I'm going to kill him." "No," Romina said. "I want to stay." Adrian blinked. "You what?" Romina stepped closer. "I feel safe here." "With you." His eyes searched hers. "Romina, don't make me go back yet. Please." He didn't answer. But his hand reached up to touch her face, and when she didn't stop him, he pulled her into a kiss. This one was slow. Desperate. Real. Later, when she lay in his arms, Romina stared at the ceiling and realized something terrifying. She wasn't sure who the villain was anymore. And worse, she wasn't sure she cared. Chapter 11: The Bite. Romina woke up in Adrian's bed. Not alone. Not exactly together. But close enough to feel the heat of him, even without touching. She hadn't meant to fall asleep there. It just happened. One moment they were talking. The next, silence. Breath synced. Minds dulled by exhaustion. Trust blooming in dangerous places. She turned her head on the pillow and looked at him. He was still, too still. Vampires didn't breathe like humans. They didn't twitch in their sleep. If he was asleep at all. His chest barely moved. Romina reached out, hesitated, then traced her fingers lightly along the line of his jaw. Adrian's eyes opened instantly. Red. Glowing faintly. Predator's eyes. He blinked, and they turned back to normal. "I didn't mean to wake you," she whispered. "You didn't," he said. His voice was thick, low, like velvet soaked in smoke. She started to pull away, but he caught her wrist gently. His hand was cool against her skin. "Stay," he said. She didn't move. Then, "Are you hungry?" He looked at her. There was silence. Something in his expression changed, soft tension sharpening to something darker. More dangerous. You shouldn't ask that, he said quietly. Why not? Because I haven't fed in 3 days. Romina's throat dried. You're joking. No. Why? His jaw clenched. Because I didn't want to feed on anyone after I tasted your scent. Nothing else satisfies. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Adrian sat up slowly, body moving with lethal grace. His voice dropped to a whisper. You shouldn't be this close to me right now. Romina swallowed. I trust you. His eyes met hers. Don't. They sat in silence. She could hear the city humming below, the muffled wind against the penthouse glass. Romina reached out. Adrian. He moved before she could finish. In a blur of motion, he was above her, pinning her gently to the bed, arms on either side of her head. He didn't touch her, not really, but his body hovered close enough to burn. Say stop, he said, breath ragged. Say it and I will. Romina looked up at him, completely still. She didn't say stop. The bite came fast and soft. Not brutal. Not savage. Just a slow slide of fangs against skin, a whisper of pain followed by warmth that made her gasp. It wasn't like she imagined. It didn't hurt. Not really. It felt good. Too good. Her fingers clutched his shirt. Her body arched slightly beneath him. She could feel her blood pulsing into his mouth, the bond forming between them like a tether strung tight with need. She saw flashes. Not her memories, his. A boy alone in a cathedral of shadows. A man with silver eyes forcing him to kneel. A name shouted in the dark. Romina's name, but not from his mouth. From someone ancient. And then, light. Explosion. Power. Adrian pulled back. Blood on his lips. Eyes wide. What was that? He breathed. Romina stared at the ceiling, panting. Her neck throbbed, not in pain, but with something electric. I saw. She couldn't even form the words. He touched her face with a trembling hand. I didn't mean to go that deep. I shouldn't have. What was it? You have magic, he said, voice stunned. Which magic? It's sleeping inside you. But the bite, it stirred it. Romina sat up too fast. Her head spun. You mean that wasn't just psychic nonsense? No. Adrian stood, pacing now. I saw your aura. Your soul. You're carrying something ancient, some power tied to your bloodline. She laughed bitterly. Of course I am. Why wouldn't I be? Adrian looked back at her. His voice was different now. Reverent. You're not just a girl. You're not just a legacy. He walked toward her slowly. You're a key. To something bigger. Something all of us forgot existed. Romina stared at him. You bit me, she whispered. You fed on me. He looked ashamed. I lost control. You marked me. He met her gaze. I did. She touched her neck. The puncture wounds were already fading. But the feeling remained. Like her blood was humming. Like something inside her had finally woken up. And worst of all, she didn't regret it. Not 1 second. Back at the Fortunato estate, Damiano stood in the center of the war room, surrounded by vampire lords loyal to him. She's been marked, said one of the inner circle. The De Luca heir has claimed her. Damiano's voice was ice. He bit my daughter. Another lord nodded. That makes her bonded. He can sense her. Find her. Influence her. Damiano turned, eyes burning crimson. Then so can I. Chapter 12. The truth comes out. Romina didn't sleep after the bite. She tried. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw things that didn't belong to her, images she couldn't explain. A forest burning beneath a red moon. A woman in white, her mother, chanting a spell with blood running down her arms. A black crown floating in midair. A name whispered in an ancient language. And through it all, a voice, not hers, not Adrian's, murmuring, "She is the key. She is the lock." She was still curled on the velvet couch in Adrian's library when the tower alarms went off. Not sirens. Worse. Chimes. Old, echoing bells that vibrated through the walls and shook the floor beneath her feet. Adrian burst into the room seconds later. He was barefoot, shirtless again, holding a glowing dagger and already in full protective mode. "They've found you," he said. "Who?" she gasped. "Damiano." It happened fast. One moment, Adrian was slamming security wards into place with ancient Latin spells. The next, they shattered like glass. A gust of wind blew open the double doors. Damiano Fortunato stood in the entrance, black coat swirling around him, eyes glowing crimson with rage and betrayal. Romina froze. For the first time, she saw him as he truly was, not a brooding billionaire, not a dangerous guardian, not even a father. A monster. A king. A vampire at the height of his power, and absolutely unhinged. "Get away from her," he growled. Adrian stepped in front of Romina. "She's under my protection now." Damiano didn't blink. "You drank from her. I didn't force her. She didn't know what it meant. She chose me," Adrian said, voice sharp. Romina's voice cracked through the tension. "Both of you shut up." They turned to her, both of them, like gods in the middle of a storm. "I'm not a prize. I'm not a prophecy. I'm not someone you get to bite and brand like a toy." Damiano's expression flickered. "You have no idea what you are. Then tell me," she snapped. Silence. Then Damiano said quietly, "Your mother's name was Evelyn Nix." Romina froze. "She told me she was nobody. She lied." Damiano walked slowly toward her. "Evelyn was the last blood-born witch of the Nix line. The only one strong enough to channel living power, magic that comes from the soul, not the elements. And I." He looked away, jaw tight. "I was meant to kill her." "What?" "I was sent to assassinate her." She had grown too powerful. The Vampire High Council thought she might try to bind the bloodlines, to use her magic to create a hybrid heir. Romina's heart thundered. "But I didn't kill her. I fell in love with her." He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of parchment, yellowed, sealed with wax. He handed it to Romina. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal. It was a letter. Handwritten. In her mother's cursive. "Damiano, if you are reading this, it means I am dead. It also means you have found her. Our daughter. Her name is Romina. I chose it because it means, from the land of strength. She will not be like us. She will be more. She will break us. Protect her anyway." Romina's knees buckled. She sank to the couch, tears in her eyes. "I don't understand," she whispered. Damiano knelt in front of her. His eyes, once glowing, were now full of grief. "You were never supposed to exist. But you did. And now, the world will want to use you. To control you. Or destroy you." Adrian stepped forward. "Then maybe the world should burn." Romina looked between them. Two monsters. One made her. One marked her. And she? She was the thing they feared and needed most. "I need time," she said softly. Damiano's jaw tensed. "Time is something we don't have." Adrian stepped forward. "Then we make time." Don't push me, De Luca, Damiano growled. She's not yours to control. She's my daughter. She's my bond. Romina stood. Stop. Both men froze. I'm going to decide what I am, she said. Not you. Not some prophecy. Not your wars. She walked to the window. Below, the city burned with light. Above, the sky cracked with thunder. Inside her, something ancient stirred. And for the first time, she didn't feel lost. She felt ready. Chapter 13, You're Mine, Romina? Romina didn't see Damiano for 3 days. After the truth unraveled like spilled blood across a centuries-old secret, she had retreated into silence, refusing to speak to either man. She stayed in the De Luca penthouse, but not with Adrian. She couldn't. Not yet. Not after the bite. Not after the letter. Not after learning she was never supposed to be born. And yet, here she was. Some cursed miracle. Some living treaty. A legacy she didn't ask for. She stood at the window every night and stared into the storm. Her mother had known this would happen. That one day, 2 empires would fight over her. And worse, that one of them would be her father. On the 4th night, she received a summons. Not a call. A summons. A sealed letter delivered by a raven-winged courier, one of Damiano's personal guards. The parchment was dark, embossed with the Fortunato crest. Her name was written in Latin script. Romina Nix Fortunato. That last name made her stomach twist. The letter read, You are hereby summoned to the Blackstone Court for emergency bloodline arbitration. Your presence is legally required. Do not resist. This is for your protection. Beneath it, a signature in blood red ink. Damiano Fortunato, Blood Lord of the 13th House. Romina crumpled the letter. What the hell is he doing now? She snapped, storming into Adrian's study. Adrian stood behind his desk, dressed in all black, reading something she couldn't see. His head snapped up. He read the letter, and his face darkened. He's making a claim. A claim? Adrian's jaw clenched. He's going to declare you his heir before the Blackstone Court. Legally. Magically. I didn't agree to that. You don't have to, Adrian said grimly. He's invoking the guardian's right. It's an ancient blood law. If he proves paternity, he can bind you to his house before your 21st birthday, with or without your consent. Romina's stomach dropped. So he's just taking me? Adrian stepped around the desk and pulled her into a hug. You're not his property. You're not anyone's. But she wasn't so sure anymore. The next night, Romina was escorted to the Blackstone Court, a hidden chamber beneath the city, carved from obsidian and iron. Magic pulsed in the walls. Every breath tasted like copper. 13 seats circled a stone platform. Each one belonged to a blood lord of an ancient vampire house. Only one seat was occupied. Damiano's. He stood the moment she entered. The court fell silent. Romina Nix Jennings, he said formally. Daughter of Evelyn Nix. Born of my blood. He stepped onto the center dais and pulled a thin dagger from his coat. Romina's eyes widened. What are you doing? She hissed. Damiano didn't look at her. Completing the ritual. He sliced his palm and let the blood drip into a silver basin. It hissed and smoked. A second basin stood beside it, empty. For her to pour, he said. To bind herself freely. Romina stood frozen. The council watched. Damiano turned to her. His voice softened. This is the only way I can protect you from the De Luca claim. If I don't do this, they'll try to bind you to them. I didn't agree to this. He said nothing. Damiano, she whispered. Don't do this to me. Still, he said nothing. Then a war priest stepped forward and raised the ceremonial seal. "She has been summoned," he declared. "She must answer." "I won't," Romina said. The priest's eyes glowed. "You must." Then it happened. Damiano stepped forward and pricked her finger himself. "Fast. Precise," she gasped. One drop of blood fell into his basin. The ritual flared to life. A bond was sealed. Romina screamed. Magic slammed into her chest like a brand. Her heartbeat staggered, her soul burned. Her blood was no longer her own. She stumbled back, clutching her chest, eyes wide with horror. "You forced me," she choked out. "You claimed me." Damiano's face was blank. Cold. "I saved you." "No," she hissed, tears stinging her eyes. "You took me." When she returned to the De Luca penthouse, she didn't cry. She shattered things. A vase. A mirror. Her voice. Adrian watched her from the doorway, heartbreaking. When she finally collapsed onto the floor, sobbing, he crossed the room and dropped to his knees beside her. She whispered, "I belong to him now." He touched her face. "No," he said. "Not entirely. There's still one bond left to choose." She looked up. And in his eyes she saw a storm. Far beneath the city, in a forgotten crypt, the old vampire seers began to stir. They had felt it. The binding of blood. The war had begun.
Every tale you hear here leaves a mark on the world beyond. If this story stirred something in you, leave a like to weave your magic into ours. Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice spins a new thread in the arcane tapestry. And subscribe to our YouTube channel Arcane Stories, where myths breathe, shadows speak, and destinies awaken. The next legend is already waiting for you.